Some of these takes will make you question reality.
So is the only group that can be racist towards black people then is white people?
We're in the U.S.
The Whatever podcast is peak content where guests get exposed for their questionable takes. Even Michael Knowles made a couple of appearances on it.
I think a lot of feminism, the cornerstone of feminism is choice for women. You can't stay home.
I'm not so sure about that.
So today we have a legendary lineup of guests getting shut down with common sense and logic. So buckle up because you're in for a treat.
Women who are not in these construction jobs and this type of thing, but rather are in kind of comfy AC-related jobs like the men, and they're getting paid less than them, then why wouldn't a man create an entire firm of women and then destroy their competition because they're now paying their staff way less?
Yeah. You tell me. I don't know. I'm not a dude. I'm not making that decision. If I hired a firm full of women, you bet I would pay them just as much as I'm not going to pay them less. That seems backwards.
But you would think a man would, right?
Potentially. I mean, I don't know who's been paying us less.
And we're kicking off with one of the podcast's favorite reoccurring arguments, the gender pay gap. The only difference is Andrew flipped the script and used the young girl's own logic against her. Because if women were truly getting paid less for doing the exact same work, businesses would hire women exclusively to cut costs. But interestingly enough, that never happens. And seeing that his point didn't land the first time, Andrew repeated the question, this time a little slower, hoping the girl could connect the dots and recognize the flaws in the arguments that she was making.
Well, then if it's men, then why wouldn't a man just have a firm of all women and pay them less if they get the same amount of work out of them?
I mean, that's a question for a dude. I can't answer that.
Why couldn't you answer that?
Why wouldn't a man have a firm of all women and pay them less? I don't know.
I mean, because then they would destroy the competition who's paying the men more, right?
Okay, so, I mean, why don't we see that then, if that's the case?
Because it's not the case that men are making more in those positions than women are.
Exactly, and here's the part no one even mentioned. These conversations around equality always seem to focus on high-paying office jobs, executive roles, or anything that comes with a nice title and air conditioning. But when it's about the tough, physically demanding jobs, it's suddenly radio silence. No one's out there protesting for equal representation on a roofing crew in the middle of summer. Trust me, I've been there. The truth is, real equality means equal opportunity across the board, not just where it's comfortable or prestigious. Next, we have a young lady who seems to understand the concept of racism, but chooses to apply it selectively.
Hypothetical scenario. A group of black men beat up a white person because he's white. Is that racism?
It's wrong, but they are not racist.
Okay. And then, so I'm trying to figure out the hierarchies.
Technically.
What about what if he's Asian?
Let's look up the definition.
No, what if he's Asian?
I think she's talking about the actual definition versus what people's interpretation of the word is.
A group of Asian men beat up a black person because he's black. Is that racist?
No.
Oh my God. So wait, a group of white people.
I'm going off of the definition. If we want to be technical, that's true.
A group of white people beat up a black person. Racist, right? Is the only group that can be racist towards black people then is white people?
We're in the U.S.
I love how the other girl jumped in thinking she was about to drop some deep insight only to completely miss the mark. If you do a quick Google search, you'd see the first results define racism as prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism by an individual, community, or institution against a person or people on the basis of their membership or particular racial or ethnic group. That is, it doesn't say this only applies if you're white. So even if we go by our logic, it falls apart. By the way, I've noticed you haven't liked the video or subscribed to the channel yet, so what are you waiting for? Nothing even comes close to the way Michael Knowles provided a much-needed reality check to a group of feminists, and trust me, it is a sight to see.
Okay, so let's say you're saying, okay, there were bad things in the past, and now not everything's perfect, but some things are better. But we're talking about the change that happened with women's lib, right? Basically, the modern feminist stuff, which says we're going to break up the family, we're going to easier divorce, women can go hook up, do whatever you want. And the thing that's weird about this is if you look at all the studies on all happiness surveys, which again, take it with a grain of salt, but it's all you've got on these sociological numbers. Since that all went into effect, the hookup culture and abortion and feminism and all the rest, women have become less happy. Everybody's become less happy, but women have become especially less happy, even relative to men.
There's no doubt that several factors are contributing to this phenomenon, even though we're miles ahead in terms of quality of life, like longer life expectancy, access to world-changing tech, modern healthcare, and more comforts than previous generations could have ever imagined. Happiness is steadily declining, and no, it's not just people being ungrateful. Society has changed. Our expectations, responsibilities, and even daily routines have evolved so dramatically that it's hard to compare them to the past. I don't want to sound philosophical, but if you think about it, we are more connected than ever, yet somehow more isolated, and I'd multiply this by a factor of 10 talking about the relation between the sexes.
If you measure happiness, which again is a very difficult thing to do, but you just take people's measures of happiness, both men and women have declined, but women have declined at a faster rate since the 70s.
Because we live on the internet, probably. Everything is so on the internet. I mean, you watch the internet, TV, though. You think you're going to die.
I don't think it's like, do we know it's directly caused because of feminism?
I mean, I think studies are all fake anyway, but if you look at all of these happiness surveys, such as they are, the big change that happened in the relations between men and women is the advent of feminism, and it made women completely miserable.
He is absolutely right, and let's say that we ignore those random happiness surveys that pop up every now and then. There's solid research to back up Michael's point. For instance, a recent article by Victor Jokes, who is a political analyst, confirmed that modern feminism does make women more miserable. There's also the fact that this movement has shifted priorities, where young women are constantly told to chase higher-powered careers and delay things like marriage and family. But here's where things get interesting. Multiple studies show that marriage and family life contribute significantly to long-term happiness, especially for women. So who's responsible for pushing this flawed narrative that made so many people feel unfulfilled? Well, I'll let Michael handle that one.
Like, let's say most people, let's say 70 to 80% of people will fall into natural gender roles. But then there's still 20% of our population that may not. And do we make a society where we force that 20% into these roles, or do we allow choice? I think a lot of feminism, the cornerstone of feminism is choice for women. You can't stay home.
I'm not so sure about that. I'm not so sure, because there was a famous debate between Betty Friedan, who was the prominent American feminist, and Simone de Beauvoir, one of the most famous feminists of the 20th century. It was in 1975, and Betty Friedan said what you said. She said, look, I think we should give women a choice. Maybe they want to go out into the workplace, or maybe they want to stay home and raise their kids, but they should have a choice. And Simone de Beauvoir, who was a more consistent and intelligent feminist, said there can't be a choice. And the reason there can't be a choice is that if given the choice, most women would stay at home. And if most women stay at home, women will not be free. If we want true women's liberation, women must be forced to be free.
De Beauvoir is essentially a key figure behind the radical feminist movement, and when you take a closer look at her ideas, it's easier to see why. In works, she rejects anything including motherhood, marriage, culture, and tradition that could ever be put women in an inferior position to men. If that sounds familiar, that's because her ideas were heavily influenced by Marxism. In fact, she was a self-declared communist and took the idea of class and struggle and simply rebranded it as women's struggle. That's the root of a lot we have to see today, but I'd love to know your thoughts here, so let's get the conversation rolling in the comments down below. And if you want your friends to see these amazing moments, please share the video with them. It means the world. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.